Carbon offsets are an important but also somewhat contentious topic in the fight against climate change. More and more companies are utilizing offsets to claim success in achieving carbon neutrality. But is it actually an accurate measure of a company's sustainability? It's complicated. That's why today we're covering what carbon offsets are, whether or not they're greenwashing, and discussing an impactful alternative for businesses looking to meet their carbon reduction goals. Welcome back everyone, I'm Diego, and this is Going Solar with Pivot Energy, where we cover all things solar energy, commercial solar, solar financial incentives, and community solar. Since the 2015 Paris Agreement, corporations and governments around the world have committed to curbing the rise of global temperatures to combat climate change. As a result, some companies have become overly reliant on market-based solutions like carbon offsets to claim carbon neutrality. But unfortunately, this becomes problematic when some companies have no intention of actually reducing their own carbon emissions. Today, we'll break down the complicated carbon offset landscape and explore how companies can leverage another type of greenhouse gas reduction, solar energy, to counteract their emissions. Let's dive in. Net zero, carbon neutral, and decarbonization are just a few of the many terms that businesses and organizations use when discussing sustainability goals. Even though they all sound the same, they actually have very different meanings and impacts. One extremely common term used by large companies is carbon neutral. The Oxford Language Dictionary defines carbon neutral as adding no net release of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, especially through offsetting emissions. Most popularly, companies can purchase carbon offset credits to achieve carbon neutrality. These carbon offset credits can be purchased and sold, meaning companies don't necessarily have to change their business model or operations to be labeled as a carbon neutral company. Carbon offset credits fall in two main categories. The first originates from projects that aim to prevent, avoid, or reduce emissions. And the second is from projects trying to actually remove CO2 from the atmosphere. Businesses can calculate their carbon footprint by accounting for greenhouse gas sources in their operations that are emitted by activities like deforestation, waste management, and fossil fuel combustion. Once that is calculated, they can purchase credits that represent anything that offsets carbon dioxide production, like planting trees. Controversially, the majority of carbon offset projects are in the prevent, avoid, or reduce emissions category. For example, say you decide to protect an acre of trees by purchasing offsets that prevent any logging corporation from cutting them down. In theory, you just prevented roughly 48 pounds of CO2 from reaching the atmosphere. But in practice, the logging company may have never intended to cut them down in the first place, or might just go hack down a different acre of trees instead. In that case, the negative impact is the same as it would have been if you hadn't intervened. The offset isn't actually offsetting anything, and it may have actually directly or indirectly led to increased carbon emissions. Many, but not all, companies are taking advantage of carbon offsets simply to launch campaigns that boost their success in achieving carbon neutrality. The bad news is that these companies are neglecting to put forth strategies for reducing carbon emissions from their day-to-day operations. The reality is that in the long run, we cannot offset our way out of the climate crisis. More substantive operational changes are needed. If you've learned something new so far, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss videos like this one. So how do we combat the greenwashing that can often accompany carbon offsets? That's where additionality comes in, which in simple terms is a market-based representation that the environmental commodities you buy actually result in lower greenhouse gas emissions. This means that in the absence of your funding, a positive environmental result would not have otherwise occurred. To qualify as a genuine carbon offset, the reductions achieved by a project need to be additional to what would have happened if the project had not existed. Even though additionality holds a higher standard for businesses' carbon offsets, determining a score isn't straightforward, since it hinges on the counterfactual question of what would have occurred in its absence. Additionality scores for carbon offsets also have an incredibly wide range, from 0% to 100%, which makes it significantly harder to categorize and quantify the impact of a business's eco-friendly endeavors. It's a useful term to express how investor-owned utility compliance buyers and voluntary corporate buyers can directly induce new renewable electricity generation. Alright, enough of these terms. Let's get into another alternative you can take advantage of to achieve your organization's sustainability goals. Give this video a thumbs up if you're excited to hear more. Plenty of companies want to actively transition away from dirty methods of energy production, but are unable to do so for several reasons. For example, they may not own the building in which they currently operate, or may not have a roof that's suitable for hosting a solar array, or their energy consumption exceeds the clean energy they could generate on-site. Flexible off-site solutions reduce the barrier to entry for companies that want to take immediate action and fight climate change. That includes investing in renewable energy certificates or solar renewable energy certificates for solar-specific projects. RECs and SRECs are a way to incentivize and legitimize commercial growth of renewable energy sources to meet emission reduction goals. They're a different type of environmental commodity than the carbon offsets, but they're similar in that they are created, bought, sold, and retired. RECs are specific to the electricity grid. They represent the actual ownership of the environmental benefits associated with a certain amount of carbon-free electricity generation, rather than being calculated in the volume of CO2 removal or prevention. RECs and SRECs used to be considered additional, but that's changed since renewable energy usage has become more viable. But since an increasing number of RECs come from resources that are already in operation in relatively cleaner parts of the grid, not all certificates have the same value. The impact of your RECs can change dramatically depending on where and when they're generated and purchased. By committing to buying the RECs from a solar project before it's been constructed, you can achieve a much higher level of impact and additionality versus buying RECs from projects that have already been built and no longer require financial aid. This is especially true for wind power RECs, which come from parts of the grid that are already highly saturated with renewables. When you commit to purchasing SRECs in advance, you invest directly in a solar project coming online. In contrast to carbon neutrality initiatives, SRECs are specific to the electricity grid. They show direct proof of support for new solar energy sources that can directly displace energy produced by fossil fuels like coal and natural gas. Learn more about how you can buy, sell, and trade high-impact SRECs in this video, and find out more about what SRECs are and how they work in that video. SRECs give businesses an incredible opportunity to reduce carbon emissions and achieve sustainability goals more meaningfully, especially if you are unable to install an on-site solar project of your own. Check out our playlist on commercial solar to learn more. Now, if you're interested in earning, buying, or selling high-impact SRECs, how do you get started? You can achieve long-term decarbonization by partnering with Pivot Energy and feel confident that your business will not be participating in greenwashing. We are your trusted partner in accelerating the shift to renewable energy. The Pivot team is here to help you enter the market and get high-impact SRECs so you can reach your sustainability goals. Pivot also develops, owns, and operates solar projects across the country and helps create the greatest value for stakeholders and communities that matter most to you. Our team will help you amplify your clean energy decisions with press, marketing materials, and more to communicate your SREC impact to your customers, board, employees, and community. Working with us is a surefire way to identify and incorporate the best possible decarbonization strategy that will grow and adapt alongside your business. And if you want to get started on your own on-site commercial or community solar project to further your carbon reduction, we can help you do that too. Just head to pivotenergy.net to get started. Now, if you have any questions, reach out to me using my email listed in the description or leave a comment below and learn what it's like to work with us over here. If this video taught you something new about carbon neutrality and its alternatives, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to stay updated on all things commercial solar, community solar, and solar financing. Thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you next time.